Hi, everybody. This is KathyL.Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm here live tonight back at Murphy's Law. And in my entertainment room, I've created this whole Shah Rukh Khan Indian background. I've got the Bana di Jodi poster. I've had this for a long time, finally got it framed. I have one of my India paintings, and then I've got Shah Rukh. He may not be here in person, but at least he's here in spirit, because this is in celebration of this actor, the King of Bollywood, the biggest film star in the world. I just watched the David Letterman interview again because I wanted to know the facts on his popularity. And it was like 39 point something billion followers. That's 43% of the world population. And nobody here in the United States hardly knows who he is. I mean, every day I say, you know who Shah Rukh Khan is? And they go, no, who's that? I go, oh my God, let me tell you. So I started this, the Pulpwood Queen, Shah Rukh Khan Fan and Film Club, because I wanted to share my love of his films and everything about him in India in a big way, because I want to introduce him to the world. Much like now, Lovelace Cook is doing something magnificent. She has a podcast called Bollywood and Books, and she interviews actual film people, authors from India. You just did, is it Ashka? How do you pronounce her last name?
Alka Joshi, who wrote The Henna Artist. And
she wrote The Henna Artist, and I am really trying to connect with her because we've been friends on Facebook for a long time, but I've got her publicist number, so I'm going to be in contact with her. But if you have not listened to Bollywood and Books, she did a 2-part series with this author, and she had the best advice for authors I've ever heard. I mean, I could do a whole show just on what she said. But the other reason I started this is the power. You know, I live in a small world, you know, growing up in Kansas. I did have all these boys from across the street when I was growing up, a little kid. We had a dormitory across the street where boys came from all over the world to this college called Midwest Institute in my hometown. And it was founded by Roger Babson, who was a Philadelphia philanthropist. And he put it there because he thought Eureka, Kansas was the center of the world, the safest place to be in case of nuclear attack. But he started this 2-year all-male college, business college, and we had all these students from South America, Venezuela, Japan, Asia, you know, India, and these guys wore suits to class, and I just fell in love with their gentlemanly ways and how kind they were. We were little kids. I mean, you know, I think I was in the 1st grade. My sisters were younger, but they used to come over and they'd say, come over to their house. They had a house mother. So all these things these seeds were planted in my mind about traveling the world, going to these places. So I started reading these books, and I'm going to tell you, I've read every book I can get my hands on India. People say, have you read it? Read it? Have you read it? Well, I have a new one I'm going to share before we start the topic of our show. This is Shadow of the Taj, and you know all about Laura Bernhardt Lovelace because I emailed you. She's from Oklahoma. Wow. This is a fabulous book, and love it more than anything. I called and talked to her for a long time. She spent a lot of time in India. And but if you haven't read it, I recommend it because you're going to be hearing more about it in the future. But right now, we're going to talk about Shah Rukh Khan in this film. Yeah, I know you've seen it. I know Tracy just saw it. I know Lovelace, you just saw it. But to me, my favorite film when I was growing up, the one I always went to when I was having a really bad day, was called, it starred Rock Hudson and Paula Prentice, and it was Man's Favorite Sport. It was a romantic comedy, and it was hilarious, about a man who was a fishing expert, but he didn't know how to fish. And he worked for Abercrombie and Fitch. Well, and they drink martinis. It's a 1960 film, and I still to this day, but I have a new film, and it's this one. It's Bana di Jodi, because it's a story. It starts out, it's so tragic.
Oh, it's extremely tragic at the beginning.
Horribly tragic. And it's, for me, I'm a cult follower on this film because it just goes to show you that when really horrible stuff happens in your life, if you'll just wait for it, look, the end of the movie, I am just dancing and celebrating. And when I
was dancing around too, and so was the dog.
I can't give anything away, but I know I've seen it at least a dozen times. And every time I have a really bad day, I've made all my kids watch it. Everybody I know watch it. But it stars, besides Shah Rukh Khan, Anushka Sharma, who's one of my favorite actresses with him, because she was in, she's been in several movies, including, oh gosh, I just went blank. The one where he's works for the space program. He goes to work for the space program in Washington, D.C. Oh my gosh. I'll think of it here in a minute. I've seen it like 10 times. So anyway, I love her, and I love there's some kind of career. You know how a man and a woman will be in a movie and you just don't get it. I remember when I went to see Aquaman, I absolutely hated the movie, and I love Jason Momoa, but I could see no connection between the actress who played the love interest in it and him. I just didn't get it. So, but if there is a film where that happens, it just makes my heart sing. So I'm going to tell everybody that this is a story about a young woman, and this is not giving away any secret, but at the beginning of the movie, she's about to get married, and her fiance and all her family is killed in a tragic bus accident on the way to the wedding. And her father is so overcome with, my daughter, he has a heart attack or stroke, whatever. But his former student has come to the wedding and is played by Shah Rukh Khan, and he is a total nerd. And I don't know what it is about nerds. I've always loved nerds. I just always love the underdog. And the first time he sees her at this wedding, he's completely love at first sight.
Oh, he is smitten.
He is so smitten. He can't, and she dances like there's no tomorrow. And I won't tell you anything more, but it's a story about what happens after this tragic event. And the thing about Bollywood films is, there's going to be a really violent or very tense moment at the very beginning of the movies. There's always, it's serious, man. And you're just like on the edge of the seat. And then the next thing you know, you're breaking out to dancing and everybody's singing a song and you're going, I feel so much better. And then
break into song anywhere they can.
I do it in my house all the time. I always have. My mother was a dancer, and we used to clean the house to Elvis and records. We put the record players on, and Don't Be Cruel, we're dusting the living room. We danced around the house, and she taught us how to do all these dances, and it's just a part of my life. Always took every dance class I could in college. So I love that they break out and dance. I love the music. They have a incredible percussion drum beat to their music. And I always wanted to be a drummer. And so I can't sit still when I watch these films. And then the costumes. Okay. So I've always worn these outrageous combinations of clothing. And all of a sudden I found my tribe. India, they dress in colorful outfits. They'll, put nose rings and henna tattoos. And, I just fell in love. And then the romance. Okay. America has lost romance. I mean, it is gone. It's tender. And, all these stupid online dating things where people are just wanting to hook up. And all of a sudden, I'm thrown back in that 1960s world where man's favorite sport, where there's this cute little tease, but there's nothing ever really, there's no touching really, or, there's looks. And if it rains in a Bollywood film, they're in love.
And it rained a lot in that film.
I have actually now, whenever it rains, I just want to run out and jump in it. So I would love to talk to you about, this was directed by Aditya Chopra. It's magical. I don't remember who all wrote the screenplay, but the favorite scenes, and I'll get into this later, but my favorite scenes are between his best friend, the hairdresser.
Yes.
The hairdresser and Shah Rukh Khan. And I feel like it's probably one of the most truthful things in the film, because Shah Rukh Khan has hair and makeup people work on him 24/7. And I'm sure he has that kind of relationship with everybody who does his costumes, his makeup, and he's not shy about saying.
It reminded me of Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes, absolutely.
When he's getting his makeover, it reminded me of Mrs. Doubtfire. And they did a lot of the same little, kind of gestures and things.
Well, I was watching him cut the hair, and I'm really impressed with the actor. He's been in a lot of Shah Rukh Khan movies. He's played a lot of different characters, and he plays a bad guy sometimes. But the way he held the hair, and even the way he was wrapping the foils, I was going, the guy kind of knows what he's doing. And then the fact that they had all this bedhead product behind them, I was just going, and that salon with the big, Indian god, the Indian god art. I just thought, I have got to go to the hairdresser in India. Because I don't know if I'm going to let him cut my hair, but I just want him to do something.
But their facial expressions are, they're that's what makes it, is their facial expressions while they're doing this makeover. And it's just, I don't know. It absolutely reminded me of Mrs. Doubtfire, but I thought, oh my God. I thought if they break into, matchmaker, I will die.
The very first scene when he comes into the picture and he's kicking on the door.
Yes.
What do you mean you got married and you didn't tell me, and he's just mad. And then Surrender pulls up on his little moped, and he goes, "What's wrong, Bobby?" It's just the cutest thing I have ever, and he's got the little bags of soda because everybody's coming. But I'm gonna let you guys talk. I love this film so much I could talk for the full hour, but I want to talk to you. Lovelace, do you remember when the first time you saw it?
It's been either 2 years or a year and a half, but I want to call your attention to Amritsar, the city.
Yeah, tell me about that, because I don't know anything. In that house, I want that house.
I know, believe me. The Golden Temple in Amritsar is famous. It is.
Now that's in.
You'll see it. There's several shots where you'll see this totally gold building in the water.
With the lights.
Yes. Famous. It's very famous, and you can go through there and be fed. And I think you can feed people because it's in a Muslim temple like that. You'll notice they don't have their shoes on. They're taking their shoes off, but they're washed. You have to wash your feet. The women have to cover their heads. But I've noticed not only is that really a sacred kind of a city, it's interesting that they set it in that city, and the things that, because he's Shah Rukh Khan is Muslim too, isn't he?
Yes.
Right. So I felt like he showed a lot of respect for his religion as well. And just there's one scene, the scene where he goes out for the day with
the girl.
where they they go to different places. They go to a temple, they go to a Catholic church, they go, you know, I thought, isn't that interesting? Because in traveling through India, I've been in places where within spitting distance, a Muslim, the mosque, the Hindu temple, and a Catholic church, where so you're hearing all these sounds. But I was just I really love this movie. I was just, it was kind of like at the end, my heart is kind of like, oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. I love his expressions. His face is remarkable, isn't it?
It, you know, he always says, I realized in this, in this David Letterman interview, he goes, I realized that, I'm not going to get any better as an actor. And I'm thinking, the man does not know how good he really is. He is so humble. He said, so I'm just going to make the world love me. I want to say he's the best actor I think I've ever seen, because he's played a sociopath, a killer, a romantic hero, a Dawn. I mean, I don't think he played an autistic man in My Name is Khan. He plays an astronaut. He played a dwarf. He played a fan in the movie Fan. I watched that movie 3 times before I realized this fan who is stalking him was him. They transformed him so much with things on his face to fill his face out and make him look young, because he looks like him, And I thought, where did they find a guy that looks so much like him? He looks like him, but he doesn't. And then I watched a whole doc on YouTube. They have a whole session on how many hours it took to make him up to play that role. And
Wow.
then, and he weighs like 20 or 30 pounds. He's littler. And they do that with,
They do an aspect ratio on it. That's how they do it. That's how they did The Hobbit.
yes.
Movie, is what
when
they
when he played the dwarf in the movie with Anushka Chopra, that I fell so in love with him. He was just adorable. And it just goes to show you that it's the person inside that makes you love somebody. And I don't know how he does it, but he even made me love him when he killed that girl. He threw her over the roof. And at the end of it, I was like, but I love him. And it's just so weird. I've never seen an actor like this. I can't compare him to anybody. There's no comparison. He always says, I'm the Tom Cruise of Indian film. No, he's not. He is so much better. He is in a whole different, he's in the level of Meryl Streep in the fact that he takes on any role and becomes that person. And I can't think of anybody any better. And I have a lot of favorite actors, and because I'm a film buff. But when the first time I saw him, I just stopped and said, who is this? And I went down that rabbit hole and I watched his Yale interviews, all of his, TED Talks. I was just kind of like, how come I don't know who he is and I'm the biggest film buff in the world? And 43% of our population follows him. He has more fan clubs than Elvis, anybody I know in the world. And I can't understand why America is so close to world cinema. So that's what this is. This is to open up the door, just like Lovelace is doing with Bollywood and books, because the storytelling of India it fascinates me, because when you've been reading books as long as I have, and now I'm going to be going into my 23rd year of running this International Pulpwood and Timber Guys book club, I read a book and I go, oh, I've read this story. This is so close to that book. This is so close. But there is never a time when I watch a Bollywood film go, well, that's something I've never seen before. I just kind of, and I just told Lovelace about this, Tracy. I've been telling everybody about this new film that just came out. It's called RRR, and it was originally named RRR after the 2 South Indian actors whose names begin with R, and the director. RRR. So they said it's so much a part of who they are that it's roar. It stands for three things: roar,
Pull it up.
Rise and revolt.
rise, and revolt. And it's about these two men who are polar opposites of each other, but they're like, they have superhuman bodies and strength, like Conan the Barbarian or Tarzan, or it reminded me a lot of Tarzan because they use a lot of animals and jungle scenes in the film that are edge of your seat. It's a violent movie, but there's a lot of violence and a lot of Shah Rukh Khans. But for some reason, I grew up on westerns and they were violent. You know, some of those.
Ram Charan
Huh?
and Ram Charan and N.T. Rama Rao and
The director.
And it is an incredible film.
Rajamouli.
And he makes a cameo. And I knew when this completely guy that shows up at the end of the film, you know, and he's in this scenes and he's just wild and everything. I go, I'll bet you that's the director. And sure enough, afterwards I checked it out and it was. But back to this this film, you know, Shah Rukh Khan has been asked many times, I've seen a lot of interviews, about what his favorite film is. And he goes, the next one, the one I'm doing next. He goes, because he does not watch a film after he makes it. He never goes back and watches them. He's on to the next one. But he's made like 80 films and he's been on 2 television series. And he also does Indian Idol, and he does that talk show where, you know, you're smarter than a 5th grade or 4th grader or whatever. He does that in India. He does all these other things. He MCs the film fair, which is like MCing the Oscars. And he's the best. Him and Karan Johar are the best MCs. And that wonderful comedian talk show host he's always on his show.
I know.
He's a comedian. He was just doing something on Netflix.
Funny.
He is Shamir. Anyway, I love him too. But I watched the Film Fair Awards. I've gone and watched every one that they've ever done. And I don't speak Hindi. Okay. But I know everything that's going on and I get all the jokes because the Indian culture puts American words in everything they do.
Not in the movie.
Yeah. And even when people go, oh, you know, it's got English subtitles, I'm not watching it. And I go, I don't even hardly look at the English subtitles because I know acha, I know what some of these things mean, you know, and if they're Malinge, I know when they say these things, you know, they're leaving or hello, or, you know, my name is, and what the Papa G and all this stuff. I've learned, but I'm going to have to immerse myself in it to totally learn it. Did you learn? Now, Lovelace was in India for how long you were there? How long?
Well, the first time, 3 months, and the second time, a little over 4, almost 5. So it was over a period of 2 years. So it was, and did I learn some Hindi? Yes. Did I learn a lot? No. But the little that I did learn when I went to get train tickets, I would speak a little Hindi, and that makes all the difference in the world. You know,
it does in any country that you ever go
except France.
Oh no, in France, if you can speak, thank you, hello, just some phrases, they appreciate it so much. I speak French, so I get along great in Paris.
I took 4 years of French in high school, 2 in college, and when I went over there and talked, they would not talk to me.
Really? And I had the exact opposite. I mean, everybody talked to me. I would go into stores and carry on conversations and talk about the clothes and everything. And they knew I was American and they were just as nice to me as I could be. I got reservations.
The only place that I felt comfortable was we stayed in the south of France and with this woman who was a chef. Her son is the editor-in-chief of the big magazine over there that everybody reads. I can't think of the name of it right now. He's a photographer and editor, and we stayed at his mother's estate, and half of us stayed in her home, which was incredible, and we stayed in the mill house, which was 8 miles down the road, which was incredible. And when we went to the villages around there, everybody was really nice. But Paris, no. In fact, I have a loud voice, and I think it's because I've done theater and I have to, present myself. And I was constantly being told, be quiet because you're too loud. And I was like, sorry, it's just.
See, and I had the exact opposite in Paris. I love Paris. I move around in Paris like I've lived
By
there
yourself or with your group?
by myself.
Yeah.
And I had some American friends, and they they were over there at the same time, and they would call me and go, we can't get reservations at this restaurant. They're not letting us in. And I'm like, because you're rude Americans. So I'm like, I'll be there in a minute. So I get over there and I ask for, reservations and a table pour trois. Oh, oui, madame. And they'll just look at me and I'm like, that's how it's done.
I think it may have been just trying to be as polite as possible. But every place else I've ever been, people are just warm and loving. And did you have that experience, Lovelace, in India? Were people kind and
It was a variety of things, Kathy, because when I was there, it was a largely misogynistic society. So I might be in a line waiting at the bus station and get pushed out of the way. And a number of times that happened, but still on the train, yes, there was no matter how little people had, there was a spirit of generosity and kindness. There really was that kindness that's just phenomenal. And I was thinking, when you do go to Mumbai, there are barbershops on the street. I don't know.
Yeah. I know in Egypt, they'll just set up right on the street and give you a haircut. Yeah.
So
I have a lot of friends.
You'll see it by the side of the road. You'll see it, where people have something like a piece of tin over.
Hair hanging on a tree is the one I saw in a movie. There's a lot of movies with hairdressers and barbers. In fact, if you haven't seen the Shah Rukh Khan, and we'll be watching it, Billu, oh my gosh, that I cry every time I watch that movie. It's the most feel-good movie ever, because in that movie, Shah Rukh Khan plays a famous hero in Bollywood film. He's playing basically himself with a different name. And he decides to go to this village to film a movie. And his childhood friend lives there, and he's a barber, and he's poor. I mean, when you see what he has in his salon to work with, he has a broken salon chair for them to sit in that's tied with rags. I mean, it's just the scissors. You've never seen anything like the tools that he has. And it's, in fact, when you get off here, you ought to go watch it. It's just absolute. And the guy who plays the barber, he passed away not too long ago. And I cried because I love every film I ever saw him in. And he had gone to London, but he got a cancer and he didn't make it. And he was just in the prime of his movie making, kind of like Shah Rukh Khan. They were, I think, around the same age, but I really mourned that guy because he was so good. But just since the time that I've started watching these films, which is just a little over 2 years, we've lost a lot of Bollywood stars. In fact, they lost their greatest singer, their playback singer. This woman had been singing forever, and I can't pronounce her name. It was Lena. I even watched her funeral, but she was so beloved by the country. The thing about the film stars in India is, and even David Letterman said, I don't have 1,000 people show up at my house when I go home. And he goes, I'd be afraid to go out. I'd hide in the basement. And Shah Rukh Khan goes, well, it depends on what they're coming there for. He goes, well, he goes, they come here because they love me. And I just thought, what would it be like to go out? He goes out on this balcony and he lets them take pictures and he waves to them and, tries to, love all of them. And there's thousands, and stay out there as long as they want, just for his fans. And I think, what would that be like? I mean, I know when you go to New York, we talked about this one time, Tracy, about how when you see a star in New York, you nod and you go on, you don't really say anything. But he can't go anywhere where he isn't just mobbed. And David Letterman said he said, so do you go in disguise? And he goes, no, Dave. And David laughed. He goes, I didn't work this hard to become famous to hide. I want them to do that.
Wow.
And I thought, that's the first time I've ever heard a famous person say that. Most people put on disguises like Michael Jackson and Marilyn Monroe and James.
But a lot of the regular actors, they don't do that in New York. And I even had a famous person nod at me who recognized me from Sundance. And it was so surreal. I mean, I didn't, like geek out or anything. I'm just like, I know you. And he looked at me, he goes, I know you too. And then we just kind of walked on, just kind of had a little moment there. I knew who he was. He knew who I was. And we just kind of had like this tiny little moment. And it was so New York. It was.
I was in New York walking with one of my I had 3 men that owned Southern Territories. I was walking with Ed, who was one of my bosses. And he, had the suit with the trench coat and bald head and cigar. He looked totally New York, and I'm walking with Ed. And as we're walking right by the Trump Tower, going back to our hotel, Sandra Bullock comes jogging by, and she jogs by. And then she jogs backwards. She goes, hey, good morning. I go, do you know her? And he goes, not at all. But she thought I was somebody. And I ran into going out of a deli, smack dab about knocked each other down. I was going out with Ed again, and coming in the door was, he starred in The Oldest Confederate Widow Tells All. His son is a famous actor now too. Oh man, this is what happens when you get
well, no, I just pull up IMDb and I'll
I cannot think of that guy's name. But I ran and I said, oh, I'm so sorry. No problem. And he walked on in. He was in Animal House, and he didn't have on any pants. That was really scandalous back in the 70s. He was in the kitchen, he had a shirt on that was barely covering. His son was it called LA Law and Order? What's it called?
Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland. That's who.
Lith Danner, Diane Lane.
Yeah, it was Donald
Bancroft.
So, and I saw Morgan Freeman on Broadway, coming out of a show. He was with the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. And how could you not recognize Morgan Freeman?
Oh, I've met him. He's real nice.
He's very nice.
He owns, we ought to go over there. He owns this really, really cool blues club called Ground Zero in Clarksdale, Mississippi. And I have lots of friends that hang out there.
We should do that because I know a lot of people have gone there and they say it's really cool. So
it is very cool. I love it over there. The people are great. There's kind of a guy I kind of want to go out with over there too. He's on my Facebook.
Tracy, go ahead.
Well, he does books. He does like coffee table books. He is a photographer, and he goes down to Colombia and he photographs the graffiti and the slums of like Bogota and all that. And then he does coffee table books. And he lives in Clarksdale, and he's just a nice guy. And he's a little older than me. He's really good looking.
That's
And
become a real music artist writer's mecca. So yeah,
it really has, and because of that, I know like Coop Cooper. He is he's a filmmaker over there. His uncle lives at their old plantation house, and Robert Plant, Mick Jagger, what's his name? Just a whole bunch of just really old aging rock stars. They go to this plantation and hang out and play.
Well, you got to go somewhere, you know.
That's where they go and hang out with Coop's uncle out there on the plantation. But there's this great little plantation out there that has like little row houses, and you
retreats, yeah.
and you stay in the little cabins, and it's really cool. And then there's some places for brunch, and I love it over there. I did a project over there in Helena, and Clarksdale's only 16 miles down the road, so just about every night I was there. And I don't stay out and party, and I was there almost every night that I was down there. I loved it.
Oh, fun.
It was the music. I love the music. I love to dance, and I love the music. And that's what's so great about the Bollywood movies, is because the music and the dance, and everybody's just so happy.
It's so infectious, and it's so happy, and it doesn't matter your station in life. It's just like Shah Rukh Khan says, well, I'm not a trained dancer, but everybody in India loves to dance. And isn't that wonderful to that you're a man and you're not afraid to dance? The two men that star in that RRR, I've never seen dancing like this in my life. They're big, they're bodybuilder dancers, but they're ripped, but they can move like nothing. In fact, I'm going to have to go back and watch that dance scene again, because that one where they have all the British colonialism, you know, the whole thing, that was unbelievable. But now, are you going to go back to India, Lovelace?
At some point, yes. I've got to get
Well,
the money.
Tracy wants to go.
I do.
I want to go, but I think it's going to be I'm looking at like 2005, you know, or maybe even
25.
I want to wait and see, because there's still a lot of problems. I mean, I have friends traveling right now, and I have some friends that ended up staying 2 more weeks because they got tested positive for COVID. So until this is really addressed, and you know, you want to keep not even yourself safe, but your friends and family safe. That's the thing that I worry about, is I would hate to give anything to my grandson. You know, that's why I've had all the shots and things. So
India is just India is just a different country that I don't know that you would want to be that sick in.
no,
Well, I can tell you, as someone who's been in an Indian hospital, that I was immediately taken in and, you know, just treated like that, where people were waiting. So, I mean, they had to get a female doctor, because I had an allergic reaction to bed bug bites that I got on the train from something or other, some blankets and I was just so stunned, because, and then the cost, I'm thinking, okay, I've gone to the emergency room, I've seen a doctor, she's prescribed medication, my ER visit was $10, my medication was $10, and it's all pharmaceuticals that we recognize.
Wow.
I had a friend on one of our trips to Italy that got a kidney infection, bladder infection. And we stopped at a pharmacy, and she went in, met with the pharmacist, came back out with antibiotics and $4. $4. And she was in and out like that. I go, something's wrong with our medical system. I mean, everybody talks about how awful it is in other countries, but I have not heard that. I've heard everybody goes, it's, you know, it's, and I'm sure it's who you are and everything, and not everybody gets that. I've seen some films where
Well, I have been in some hospitals that are kind of dreadful too, and so I do write about that in my in the novel because some of them.
She's got a book coming out that I am dying to read. I cannot. She's got beta readers reading it now, and I got your book, by the way, but I have a hard time. Tracy sent me her book on the computer, and I have a hard time reading on the computer because my eyes.
Print it out for you.
Yeah, I need it. I'm going to have it printed out because
I'll print it out and get it to you.
Okay. So, well, when this all happens, I've got several people go, if you go, I want to go with you because I know if I go with you, you're going to have a good time. And I said,
yes.
Now I'm going to tell you something. When I go, this is not going to be your Cadillac trip. I'm going to take, one change of clothes and, small luggage. I want to go and I want to see an experience. I would like to paint there. Can you get paint supplies there?
I'm sure in the big cities. I brought some little watercolors with me when I went. I mean, tiny little thing of watercolors and a little watercolor book, so I could kind of paint at the beach when I was in Varkala. But I'm sure that there are tons of places you can get paints. In fact,
there has to be.
I know an artist in Mumbai, and I could ask her. So just so you.
Oh, I would love to talk to her because I would like to know, what do they paint on? What do they have canvases and?
Oh gosh, yeah,
everything you can imagine.
Yeah, because you think about, you see the weddings in movies with all the jewelry, the contrast, the rich and poor. Just you'll see a film. Like the film posters like you have in the background, but then also I was thinking about in Calcutta or going anywhere where you see the advertising for all these diamonds. I mean, there are shops, go into a shop for jewelry, and because some of them, are just fabulously wealthy, and anyone I know who's
that won't be where I'm going. I want to experience the festals, the people, the architecture, the colors, holy. I want to go where that Golden Temple is, which isn't that northern?
It is. It's it's the state of Punjab.
Yeah. I think that I would probably like that part of India. I've watched enough of these travel shows that Mumbai is, it may be great for Bollywood, but I don't think it's all that. And Delhi, oh yeah, I just watched that one film with Ali Abad about the young girl that got sold into white slavery. That is a powerful film. If these films don't get nominated for foreign films in the United States, to me, that RRR is the best film I've seen this year. I mean, the best. Wow. And now, I got to wait till 2023 to get any more of the new Shah Rukh Khan's, but his daughter's going to be in a film coming up, and it's called The Archies, which it's an Indian version based upon the Archie comic books.
Whoa.
And I go, wow, I saw the trailer and I was just like, I've got to see this. This is really, man, they think so outside the box. I don't know, but most of this is done by men, filmmakers, and but it's changing. It's going to be slowly, but in some ways I want things to change, and in some ways I hope it doesn't. I don't want. I want to see the culture of India. I don't want us to become so Americanized. You go there and you go, gosh, I could be at, the Pizza Hut, in the United States. I don't want to be at Subway and a foreign country, you know.
I had a really interesting discussion with Anju about this, because when I observed, I thought, okay, so you'll see an older woman, like grandmother, in a sari, and the mother will be wearing a tunic and jeans maybe, and then the daughter might be just wearing a t-shirt and jeans. And I said, I really hate to see the loss of that coat. She said, no, because the grandmother didn't have any choice about her marriage. She didn't have an option to have an education. It's hard won. And then, that through the generations that the women are getting so much more opportunity. Even they may still have arranged marriages, but they're able to, and you'll hear, I think Veena Rao talks about that too, because it's really,
The one thing that I think Anju Gatani, who's one of our authors, our friends, Anju told me about this film that I didn't recognize, and I'd watched it a dozen times. She goes, it's the first film where the man lead hero character puts the woman above his own self. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, think about it. He loves her so much, he sacrifices his own self for her. And I go, well, you're kind of right, because I've watched a lot of films where, arranged marriages. There was one I thought I hadn't seen, went to watch, and it was a man. It's the bridal night. He goes in the room and she's like decked, she's got the fancy stuff on and everything. And she's sitting on the bed and she looks up at him and he comes in his full wedding attire and he goes, listen, he goes, I know we got married. Our dads, this is good business. They'll do well with us marrying because it'll be good for both their businesses. But I'm in love with somebody else, so there won't be a marriage or children or any of that.
Wow.
And she's sitting there. This is her wedding night. She said, why did you marry me if you didn't want to have a marriage? And he goes, well, it was basically a business arrangement. And I just thought, can you imagine how awful that would be, that to marry somebody and think, here I am at the beginning, because they're raised to think that these people are matched together.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they don't know each other, they will fall in love. And then to be told, nope, not going to ever love you, never going to have children, we're not going to. And the same thing happened in that movie Devdas, where the beautiful girl who was in love with Shah Rukh Khan in the film, his parents did not want them to marry in that family. So she went out and married the richest guy she could find, who basically had just lost his wife. And he said, I love my wife. I married you to take care of my children. And so I just think, oh, that poor girl.
I'm friends with some two sisters that their parents are Indian, and so their last name's Sharma. And both of those women were raised. One was supposed to have been a lawyer, and one was supposed to be a doctor. And one became a doctor. She's good friends with me. But her sister defied her parents and went into journalism. And now she is the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue.
Oh my God. How cool is that?
And her husband is an author. His name is Casey Michelle, and he writes I forget what he wrote about, but it was some he would be the kind of guy that would be on MSNBC. Actually, Bersha's been on MSNBC. She interviewed Obama right before the election. It was one of his last interviews, and he was speaking about what was it, South Dakota and the Indians and the pipeline. And
take notes of this, Lovelace. She might have some connections for you for people to be on the show, because she's featuring Indian authors, Indian filmmakers.
Well, you should talk to Bersha, and you should talk to Jaya. Jaya lives here. Jaya does short films, and she's always like in the top 5 of the LA Film Prize, and she's an actress. She's also a doctor, and her husband is a stay-at-home dad.
Wow.
So it's interesting that both of those girls have kind of flipped the the tables on that, kind of, it's maternal. It's not, it's a matriarchy. It's not a patriarchy in both of those households.
That would be a dream come true. I
don't know.
I need a wife. I need a wife.
I need a wife. I don't need a husband. I need a wife. I always said that,
Well, what is a husband? I mean, you have to define that. It's not what it was when I was a child. A husband was the provider. He's the one that took care of everything. He's the one that brought home the bacon. But I went through that time period of the 70s where, we're going to, we're following the whole, women's movement. There's been all these waves, and we're expected to become, job seeking people too, and help out. And that's why people went from 1 car to 2 car, and they got to buy a home when they got married, because 2 salaries put together. But the problem is we still have the burden of the childcare.
Yes.
And
yeah. Well, my friend David Patterson, Catherine Patterson's son, he was the stay-at-home dad in his marriage. He's got 2 wonderful sons, and Ariana is she is one of the probably top 50 plaintiffs attorneys in the country. And she brings home the bacon.
I think that's really admirable that, it's all about give and take, and then when you get to be my age, it's like, most of the men that I know are wanting somebody who will cook and clean for them and, take care of them. And I've taken care of people my entire life. I'm ready to have some fun.
I know, I have a hard time, taking care of myself.
Yes.
I can't take care of somebody else. I had a marriage that's what he wanted me to do. And I worked 80 hours a week. I had a store. So I couldn't, and then I bring home my books, and I even had an accountant, and I'm still bringing home my books and my work and everything home. I worked 80 hours a week. And he wanted me to mow the lawn. He wanted me to do the dishes, clean the house. He did not lift a finger. And if his underwear, stayed on the floor and I didn't like it, that's okay. If it wasn't clean, he could go to Walmart and buy more.
Yep.
That was the mentality of him. And, and I got out of it. And I have a hard time taking care of myself. I can't take care, of another man. Are you kidding me?
I think that's probably why I love this movie so much, because this man, just when, women would do things for men if they acted like Shah Rukh Khan did in this movie. When she brings him that lunch in the, little yellow.
The little yellow thing.
And he is so excited about somebody did something for me.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks into work and he's holding it. Everybody's looking at him. I just thought I would fix that man lunch every day of my life if they appreciated it. But when they, when you see the lunch still in the car and they never even took it into work, and it's spoiled, and 3 days later the lunch box is on the counter and everything's molded. No. But he did things for her in this film. He knew she wanted to dance, and he paid for her to take those dance classes. And that impressed me because he did it for her.
He did it for her. 21. Holds up 21. And
it's just precious. And then the fact that he transforms himself to try to be close to watch her, and then it gets caught up in this. Everybody's got to watch this story, what happens to him, because he really just became this transformed person because he just wanted to go and watch her dance and he didn't want to be recognized as watching her. And then got him into the dance.
He doesn't look anything like his nerdy self. So it's just so amazing.
And everybody goes, oh my God, he looks so bad, with that plastered down hair. I go, I think he's adorable. And then I'll tell you my favorite moment in the whole movie is at the temple when he's down at the water and he comes out and he's got on the white outfit and the muslin cap and he's walking towards her with those glasses and she looks at him and she recognizes that this is the man of her dreams, and it's just like that moment of him walking with his bare feet, and I just like, oh my God. I mean, it's just probably the sexiest scene I've ever seen in a movie. And there's no kissing or loving or anything like that. It's just the way he looks at her and she looks at him. And that is just absolutely. And then I don't know how they did that thing with the stars, but the Punjabi power and light, that's just, you light up my life. That is the funniest thing ever because he's got the most unglamorous job in the world. He works for the light company. I just think but that's what I love about it. It's not, but I'll tell you that house, I would give anything to move into that house. That house and the way he showers in the house, and then how the outside, the courtyard is, and the courtyard on the roof, and how the rooms go all the way around, and that kitchen. I just go. So that is, now, what's the name of that city again? I've got to go there.
It's Amritsar. It's Amritsar. And it's very near, the border. I don't know how things are going on now, but the border between India and Pakistan, they have a changing of the guard. They have a really interesting ceremony at the end of the day. I don't know, but if they're fighting there, you can't really go there. But Amritsar is, it's just such a holy place. You probably don't notice, but there are people parading through that temple, through the mosque,
all the time.
The Golden Temple all the time. So, and I know that, that's an extra, that I love that is, I don't know if it's called a Haveli, Haveli.
How far is that by train to like Mumbai?
Far.
Days to like 2 or 3 days?
I don't know, because when I went from southern India to Calcutta, it was 54 hours because I didn't think about how big India was.
Well, I'm very aware of how big India is.
Well, I was very naive.
And I know there's certain parts of it that I like to see the Pink Palace. And I just shared yesterday, they said this is a very obscure temple and nobody ever goes there, and they're restoring it. It's the most beautiful temple. It's set in a lake. And then on each side of it, sitting in the lake, are 2 gigantic turrets that have spiral stairs going all the way around to the top. Oh, you've got to go out to it by boat. I mean, how many of those are in India where they're in the water?
First of all, there's so much to see. You can't, in a lifetime, you couldn't see all of India, everything that there is to see. And people I know have told me that they haven't traveled to some of the places that I've been, Indian people.
Well, how many people haven't been to New York City and gone to all the Empire State Building or a Statue of Liberty? I mean, there's Grand Canyon. I mean,
I don't know how many times I've been to New York City, and I never do touristy things. I always hang at the Players Club, which is it used to be a gentleman's club. First woman ever to be in that club was Helen Hayes, and Carol Burnett belongs to it. And I hang there. That's my kind of hanging
Are you an
spot.
actor, Tracy? Are you an actor?
Oh no, I'm a writer. So I have friends that I belong to that club. I need to re-up my membership because I love hanging out there. And I've hung out with some great celebrities and some great actors, and even bought some great actors. Used my membership to buy booze and at the bar, because you have to be a member to buy anything, there at the club. And so I've had cocktails with Mercedes Rule. I have had cocktails with Jimmy Caron, and he's just the most wonderful. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was just the most wonderful character actor. He was the guy. He was one of the guys in the China Syndrome, and he just a great man that I just always love visiting with. Brian Murray, who's not Bill Murray's brother, but Brian Murray was Edward Albee's best friend. And he actually did a table reading for me. And I always hung out with him at the club because he just had the best stories. And I've hung out with Elaine Stritch. Oh my God, Bill Pullman, Robert Vaughn, even. We shared a newspaper one afternoon, and I forget who all. I mean, it's just unreal, the people that I've just kind of hung out with, and and they're just people.
Yeah,
When I go to New York, I like to go to the Broadway shows. That's what I hit as many as I can possibly hit. The plays, the musicals, and always do something in Central Park. But the one place I've never got to go in New York is Coney Island. I've always wanted to go to Coney
I've
Island.
never been to Coney Island.
I was in the Mermaid Parade in Coney Island when I lived there.
Really?
I'm familiar with what's friends of mine who are, well, I used to live in New York. And
Tell her what you did, Lovelace. Tell her what you used to do.
then I've got to run. No, I used to work with magazines and television in New York, and I also worked in LA in the film industry. So
wow.
Yeah, movie actors, that's their job, and you help them do that.
It's their job. And but they do have some fascinating stories. Even I used to hang out every now and then with Shelby Foote, and he also had the most fascinating stories. You give him some bourbon, and that man would just tell you all kinds of stories with that velvet voice that he had. Adored him.
Kathy, I'm gonna have to go.
I know it's actually 6 after 8 o'clock, so we've got to go. Thank you for joining me, Lovelace, and I'll keep in touch. And thank you, Tracy, for joining me. Have fun. I've got a zillion things going on too, but this is a great film. And I'm not sure, I'm trying to watch them in the order that I watched them. And I think the next one might be Billu. So if it's Billu, and it's a story about a barber in a small town in a small village in India. But we'll talk more. This is, this is continuing conversation. I appreciate you guys joining me so much. It means the world, because I love these films so much, to have somebody to talk to them that loves stuff like this as much as me.
I love it.
I hope more people jump on board, but I appreciate it. And Lovelace, whenever you're ready, I'm ready for, I don't know who you got in the loop on your show. For the Bollywood books. Who's up next?
Actually, someone who's not famous and who's not a writer, but she lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she moved from India with her husband, but she can't get a work visa. And she worked in the ad industry in Mumbai, but she started an interesting author program at the library in Charlotte, the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, and she's helped. So I'm going to talk with her. We had to cancel our interview last week, but I just thought, I want to talk with her because she has taken the creativity from her education and the work that she did, the experience in the advertising agency, to to do this incredible program for the community, which I think is remarkable. It's extraordinary.
Charlotte must be a cool town, because my friend, author Carolyn Turgeon, who does Enchanted Living magazine, just moved there.
Wait,
And
doesn't Jenny Garner live there?
maybe.
I think she lives there too.
But anyway, well, and are you going to be able to come to Girlfriend Weekend this year in Amelia Island, Lovelace?
Oh, God willing, I got to make the money. Hey, but I'm getting ready to narrate my first audiobook. And yes, and then
good. She has the most incredible voice. So good for you.
It's not a very
She's
good
also
book.
an editor too. She edits books. So
you do?
yes, and she's fabulous. So she lives in Fairhope, Alabama, one of my favorite places. How's Maggie doing? Maggie
is in hospice, and she is getting weaker day by day. She is having people, there's a video, I don't know if I can't forward it, but where
is it on that site you gave me?
I don't know. I went to
She's
see
one of my book club members that's battling cancer in Fairhope. I have a really great bunch of friends.
Is that Emily Bell?
Yeah.
Did Emily Bell? But Maggie, I've got videos where you tie the thing around her head, the scarf around her head, and it was too much of a video. It was too long to load, so I've got to figure out a way to put
Google Docs. Load it onto Google Docs, and then you can send it.
Because but she, some of the people from what's called the Hope community came, and they had a spiritual music in the background, and these ladies dancing and praying over her. Oh my goodness, she's I don't think she's long for this world, to tell you the truth. So
if you knew her, she is tall, beautiful, model-esque, and she bought one of my kimonos and scarves and model for me there at the art gallery. It's called Eastern
the Eastern Shore Art Center.
Yeah, we did this whole show, and I'm talking to Nancy Rhea there. I may be coming back. So I'm
love to go back down there. I love Fairhope. I love that town. I could live there.
Well, we got the Waterhole. We got Suzanne Hudson and Joe Formicella down there that have this wonderful commune.
We're talking. Suzanne is ready to do a reunion from the old days where there were Southern writers reading, and they had wonderful, wonderful authors. But we'll talk about that another time, because
okay, well, I got to let you go. I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so much fun.
We're going to do this once a month. So it'll be the last Sunday night of every month, and 7 o'clock. 4 o'clock was too early for most people. So this will work. So
that worked just perfect.
Thank you. And just whenever you're ready, just get in touch with me. Okay, Lovelace? And give me that book, girls. I want that book. Okay. It's all about the story. Vermelinge. Bye-bye. Woo.
I love that.
It's fun, isn't it?